Well, good morning everybody, and thank you so much for joining us here today in Melbourne from wherever you are. My name is Ryan Lewis. I'm from Mercedes-Benz Australia, and it is an extremely exciting day for us and an extremely exciting moment for me to be able to introduce two very special guests to you. The first of which is, of course, the Mercedes-Benz EQC 400 4MATIC, and my guest here today is a man who knows it better than just about anybody else on the planet, Mr. Karl Schreiber, who is the head of EQC testing. Now, Karl, you've been spending a lot of time with this car over the last 3 years, and today you'll be able to help me answer some of your questions, some questions that we've already had submitted earlier, to tell you hopefully everything that you need to know about the EQC. So Karl, maybe you can start us off. Tell us a little bit about where you've been with this car over the last 3 years.
Yeah. We had a lot of car testing with the EQC. In the first 2 weeks of February this year, we was in Sweden. We have pretty cold temperatures in Sweden, minus 35 degrees to minus 40. And then we switched to Idiada to do some long run tests and high-speed tests, and then we go to South Africa to the high heating tests, and now we're here in Australia.
So this car has it's seen a lot already in its life. The EQC is obviously very new to most people, but it's already been, put through a lot of pressure to get it to where it is today. Now this car is still a little way away from making it to our roads here in Australia. I believe it will be available for people to get into from around the middle of the year in some markets around the world, and it's very, very special for us to have it here so early in the piece and be able to get to know it a little bit more closely. Unfortunately, that does make it a little bit hard for us to talk about some of the details that people will be obviously very curious to know, but in time we'll be able to confirm how much the car costs, things like that. But in the meantime, maybe we can talk a little bit about the things that people really are curious to know, particularly around charging a car like this. It's obviously very new for people to be using electric vehicles rather than filling their cars up with petrol. And some of the questions that we've got around charging times and things like that, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the EQC is like to live with in terms of the flexibility of being able to charge this vehicle.
Okay, we think you have to charge the EQC overnight. Yeah, that's what we prefer. Yeah, I think you should, if you come from the work or from shopping or you visit a restaurant or something like that, you have to charge it overnight on a wall box in a garage maybe, and the next morning the battery will be full. You have 100% SOC, and during the day you go to work, the car is parked, and you come back from work. And that's it. It's all day usable. It's one thing you can charge, and another you can charge DC. It needs from 10 to 80%, 40 minutes. Or you can charge with a normal plug, but it's just like an emergency plug, emergency charge. Sure. You should do that not.
Yes. So we have obviously a growing infrastructure here in Australia, and we have more public charging stations being built all the time. So you can, as you're explaining, you can charge it at home from a domestic plug if you need to. In an emergency, you can get a small amount of charge into the car from that. You have the wall boxes, which give you a quicker rate of charge, which is a great option for people who are EQC owners. And then you can go to fast charging in public areas as well, which can give you up to that 40-minute, 80% charge. Sure. So for people who are wondering about pricing and things like that, obviously this changes depending on your setup at home. From what we understand, it's about 25 to 30 cents for a kilowatt hour of charge. So a full charge for EQC should cost somewhere between about $20 to $25 if the battery is completely empty. And there are options for obviously bringing that cost down if you have solar power at home or a home battery and things like that.
Yeah.
And this vehicle, if you have a green energy plan with your provider, can be completely green.
Yeah.
That's been a big part of the EQC development, hasn't it? Making sure that this vehicle is sustainable.
Yeah, you're right, definitely. Yeah, but it's from government to government, it's very different. Yeah, but it's you're right. Yeah, green technology, and green technology is also good if you charge. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the car. So the battery that this vehicle has, the EQC 400, what size is the battery and what kind of range will you get out of it?
Yeah, the range will be more than 400 kilometers, and the battery size is 80 kilowatt hours.
Sure.
Yeah.
And whereabouts? Usable, yes, 80 kilowatt hours of usable battery.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the size of the car, maybe where the battery is, where the electric motors are. Let's get to know the actual vehicle a little bit better. Maybe we'll walk around to the side here, and you can sort of talk us through what we have here. What is it based on, and where is the electric? Where are the electric components in this car?
Yeah, we have a battery in the underfloor. Yeah, it starts like here. Yeah, and goes to the rear axle. Yeah, and that's a battery, and the electric engine is like here. Yeah.
And you have an electric motor in the back of the car as well.
We have two engines. We have one engine for the rear axle and one engine on the front axle, and for the front wheels and the rear wheels. Yeah. And we can shift the torque from the front axle to the rear axle or both. So we have a four-wheel drive if you want. Yeah. It depends on how you drive.
And what was the thinking? Excuse me. What was the thinking behind starting with a vehicle of this size and this form factor for our first mass-produced electric car?
Now we have here a perfect package. The package is from the GLC, yeah, and the body in white. It's under this border, also from the GLC, and we could find a perfect combination and application between this body in white and the battery, yeah, and therefore we use the EQC for making our full electric car.
So starting with the GLC gives you a form factor that's extremely popular all around the world.
Yeah,
this is the kind of vehicle that people are moving towards for all sorts of uses.
Yes. It's a win-win situation for us. Yeah.
And in terms of practicality, this car has, what sort of boot space does it have? The trunk of this car?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the flexibility of what size do we have?
Yeah. You don't feel the electric car. You see nothing from the battery. It's not a rolling battery. Yeah. You have more than 500 liters in the trunk. It's like the GLC today, and we have similar dimensions to the GLC in the height, the weight, and the length. Yeah.
So we have a lot of people who are very interested in the infrastructure in Australia, which is something that you're still getting to know. You've obviously only been in Australia for a few days.
Yeah.
At the moment, the charging infrastructure in Australia is growing very, very rapidly. At the moment, you can drive this vehicle if you live on the east coast of Australia. You can get all the way from Adelaide right the way up to Cairns using the infrastructure in Australia that exists. In a minute, when we get into the car, maybe you can show us on the display how the car can figure out how far it can go on the range that it has, and obviously it can locate charging stations, and it can plan your journey based on those sorts of things, which we can look at in a moment. Some of the other questions that we have: if you're driving this vehicle around town, can you explain to me how this vehicle is able to add more energy into the battery using the electric motors in terms of energy recuperation?
Yeah, we have a recuperation system here in the car. If you brake, it seems like you brake. Yeah? If you see a red light traffic sign and you brake, the car does not brake. The car recuperates, yeah, and refill the battery. Yeah, but the customer thinks he's braking.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you start with your charging the battery, but then as you're using energy and then as you're slowing down again, you're actually adding energy back into the battery to give you more range, more life out of the battery.
Yeah. You can gain range. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. All right, maybe jump into the driver's seat. I'll come around to the other side and I'll join you there, and we can have a chat about what it's like to actually drive this car and have a bit of a look inside it. We've had some questions about what this electric car is like to drive. Maybe you can tell us, is it different to driving a normal SUV? We have two main differences between conventional car and this EQC, the full electric car, because we have no transmission. That's the first, and the second is we have the maximum torque from the E-engine, from the E-drive, if you have 0 km/h speed. Yeah, and that's the big difference. Yeah. So there's no conventional transmission.
Yeah.
It's a single speed.
Yeah, it's a single speed.
And you still have paddle shifters, which a lot of people are familiar with now, but obviously with no gearbox, they don't do anything to that. Can you explain what the paddle shifters do? Yeah, we can with the pedals we can regulate the recuperation. We have D minus for maximum and recuperation, and we have D minus, D plus, or D auto. Yeah. Okay. And the auto is like Distronic, but the car will not accelerate if the car before us goes far away. You have to do it with the gas pedal. Sure. It's a different to the Distronic. Now, in terms of Mercedes-Benz and safety, that's been a core principle for the development of this car. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've done with this vehicle in order to make sure that it's as safe as possible in a crash? It's, you mentioned it, Mercedes and safety. It's one of our first priority, and we have create a special crash frame for the battery in the front, and also for the E-engine and the wires and the high voltage. Maybe we can open the hood and then we can see it. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Do you want to open the hood for us, and we'll move around to the front of the car and have a quick look at that. Now, how many kilometers do you think you've driven in EQCs over the last 3 years? Maybe, I think, between 16 and 80,000 kilometers. 60 to 80,000 kilometers over 3 years of testing. Yes, testing and all day home. Sure. And some long weeks involved there, I think you were saying. Yeah, 60 or 80-hour weeks. Maybe you can lift that up for us, and we'll just show a little bit here. So this is the crash structure, one of the crash structures. What I'm talking about? There's some interesting things here in terms of the way that is isolated from the cabin. So it's obviously crash safety, but then it's also it reduces all of the sort of sounds of the engine. Yes. Even though it's very, very quiet, this car is extremely serene inside to drive, isn't it? It's another development goal from us to have outstanding NVH in the car, and therefore we had decoupled this frame from the body in white and the structure from the car, and also the engine is decoupled from the crash frame, and that's the reason that you can't hear any high frequency electronic noises in the car. This beep, what you hear in a train or in a tram, you can't hear it here in the car. Well, maybe take us back to, let's close this up and let's talk a little bit about the time that you spent in this car. Take us back to cold weather testing, this exact vehicle. You've been with this car and obviously several others in Sweden. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what it was like to do that sort of testing in minus 40 degrees, minus 35 degrees. In Sweden, it's very tricky with this car.
because it's very cold and the battery don't like this. Yeah? And therefore it's very important that you charge overnight. Yeah? But you can use a precondition, maybe over a Mercedes-Me app, yeah, and you can use the car in Sweden in the morning, and it's very warm. It's pretty comfortable in the car, and you can move away, and you have range not from 400 kilometer or more. It's a little bit less. Yeah. 300 or 250, and if it's very cold.
Sure, these are extreme conditions we're talking about.
Yes.
And then take us to South Africa, where this car has been most recently. What does a day in the life of an EQC test engineer look like for you doing hot weather testing in South Africa?
Yeah, it's normally it's the same like in Sweden, from the other side. Yeah, we come from the high temperature, and we have to cool the battery, but it's not so difficult. And the battery likes temperatures round about from 30 degrees. Yeah, and if you have 45 degrees here outside, like in South Africa or in the desert in USA, 50 degrees, or you have to reduce the temperature from this to 30 degrees, and it's easier, and it needs not so much energy, and you can use a range from 400 kilometers. There's no problem.
So we know we've talked a little bit about the comfort of this car, a little bit about the safety of this car. Yeah. But this car driving dynamics has been very important in the development of this car as well, hasn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about its performance, its power and torque, and maybe a little bit about what it's actually like to drive?
Yeah, the car has a very special suspension. We have airmatic. We have an air body control on an air suspension on the front axle, and we have a steel suspension on the rear axle. Yeah. If you do that in a normal car, the car will, we say, a little bit rolling over the diagonal, and it's moving like a tiger. Yeah? And this car will do that not. Yeah? Because we have a very stiff body in white, and a very stiff structure, and a very stiff battery cover. And the combination of them all allows us to make a steel suspension on the rear axle very comfortable, and a very sporty front axle with the sporty steering from the GLC Coupe. Yeah. And if you drive with the car, you can go very dynamic, and also you can drive very comfortable. Yeah, we have a little bit both.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's so with the two electric motors, we have up to 300 kilowatts.
Yeah.
And 765 newton meters. Is that right?
Yes, right.
And that torque is almost instant.
Yes. Yeah, it's tricky with the torque. Yeah. As we start with the car, we had wheel spin all the time.
Not anymore.
Yeah. And I think we find a very good application for the eDrive system in combination with ESP and the ASR. And now we can accelerate very dynamic on the first 20 meters, like the AMG, or first 10 meters like the Formula 1 cars.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people very interested in what it's like to own an EV in Australia. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what the climate is like in Australia. Obviously, you've done some very hot weather testing, but how does Australia fit into EV ownership? What is it like to have a car here in this climate?
Yeah. Australia, I think Australia is a perfect climate for the car, because we have no very low degrees, and it's perfect for the car. It's perfect for the range. I think here in Australia you can move the car with 100% SOC more than 400 kilometers. Yeah, I'm very sure. Yeah, and it's really perfect here. But not today. It's a little bit too cold.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, the silence of this car, there's a few elements to that. How important was the silence inside the cabin for the development of EQC?
Yeah. It was. I mentioned it before. It was one of our development goals to have a very quiet car, a very quiet greenhouse, and we done a lot, to reach that. We have acoustic glass on the side windows. We have an acoustic glass on the front window, the windshield. We have many additional parts in the car to make good acoustic, and I think you can hear and feel it if you move with the car, if you drive the car.
And what does that mean for pedestrians outside the car? How have you made sure that this car is safe, doesn't sneak up on people? We have some noises. If you reverse the car, it's beep 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 beep. And if you move slower than 30 kilometers an hour, we have a whoop noise. With animals and some people who walks around, and they hear the car. It's very important. And in Europe, it's a law. We have to do that. Right.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah.
So we touched on it before, starting with the GLC, starting with an SUV. Can you tell us about what the advantages are of this body style in terms of occupant comfort and those sorts of things? Why this was the vehicle that we started with for EQs, the first EQ?
The EQC was perfect because we saw that we can it's easy to integrate battery in the underfloor of the EQC, and that's the reason that we said we use the EQC to make our first full electric vehicle, full-size vehicle. You can see the battery in the car, you can feel the battery in the car, you have a lot of space in the car, like the EQC today. We have the same dimensions, and and that's it.
That's great. Maybe we could quickly we'll open the back doors and have a quick look at the back seat in there, and we'll open the boot, just to show people how these things, having a battery in the floor, it actually hasn't made any real difference in terms of how much space there is inside. These are the same seats as in a normal GLC, same amount of occupant room inside.
You have a perfect seating position in the car. It's not like some competitor cars from us. Here you have a perfect space and the perfect feeling in the car.
Yeah, sure. So we've got a really big boot in the back. Even though there is an electric motor underneath, we still managed to retain the same amount of cargo space inside.
The battery package is under this, under this border, and also under the rear seat, and you can see it and you can feel it. You can use more than 500 liters of the trunk. It's like the like the GLC today.
Let's jump back inside quickly. Because we'd love to talk about the MBUX system that this car has, which is something that people will love when they get into the EQ. This infotainment system, obviously, it can respond to voice control and very sophisticated voice activation. Maybe you can run us through some of the other cool features of this system, particularly with the navigation.
We have two EQ specials in the head unit. The EQ menu. Okay, here you can see. You can regulate some charging options. You can search charging stations, maybe in the navigation system. And here you can see Auto Hotel 3.9 kilometers, and the next is in 5.2 kilometers. We have a lot of charging stations here in Melbourne. It will be easy to move the car here in Melbourne and to charge it.
And this system can show you, you call this the range cloud, right?
Yes, and that's the second view. Here you can see the range cloud. Now we have an SoC from more than 70%, 77, and The rest is 198 kilometers, and this is the range cloud. Yeah.
Sure. Fantastic. All right, well we'll move back to the front of the car now and start to wrap it up. It's been really interesting talking to you, getting to know the EQC more. We really appreciate you coming all this way to Australia and giving us this level of insight. The EQC is coming to Australia later this year. First vehicles will be available towards the end of this year. If you are interested, there's a few ways that you can get to know more about it. One of the great things that you can look at is the EQ Ready app, which if you are interested in an electric car, it can actually map the kind of driving that you do on a daily basis and give you more of an idea about what sort of an electric Mercedes-Benz might be right for you. And if you are interested in an EQC, you can register your interest online as well. Thank you so much for joining Karl and myself here today in Melbourne. We hope you've enjoyed this bit of insight into the EQC, and we look forward to being able to tell you more about it in the near future. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karl.
Thank you, Ryan.